pointer.
Yeah, but it will not point because of this. It's a TV. It will point down.
Oh. Oh, I must point here. Oh, do I point it towards this? So I point towards that. Okay. Okay. Can I start?
Recording in progress.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, fellows, affiliates, friends, AAS fantastic staff. I must say I love working with this group and the officers. So, and welcome to our collaborators, international partners, African partners, other academies within Africa, globally. And thank you for attending this very important meeting. It is now exactly 1 year and 1 week since I took office, and I thought it would be quite important to reflect at this stage and just take you on a journey of our achievements and our current activities and what we plan to do in the future. So Dr. Peggy, my executive director, she's very proud of the fact that this is the first time we've had 2 women, president and executive director, in the African Academy of Science. And I think that sets the tone globally and in Africa, in the continent, that women can be leaders and that we lead with compassion and dedication, and that we do want to work towards partnerships. So in 40 years' time, we are bringing in winds of change. We are putting forward a new direction, and we've already launched our new strategic plan. And I will touch on that just now. But the strategic plan is from 2023 to 2027. So just to give a little bit of a background, that plan already was developed in 2022. And we launched it earlier this year, and we're currently busy with the implementation, and by 2026 we will start developing the next strategic plan. We do invite all fellows and partners to give us input, and we are determined to align our strategic plan with that of our key strategic partners. So partnerships for us is extremely important, and that obviously includes the African Union, the European Union, Carnegie Corporation, International Society for Sciences, UNESCO, etc., etc. So today I'm going to give you a glimpse of some of these partnerships and where we are in terms of memorandums of understandings, or establishment of new programs or initiatives. So another very important point that I think I need to touch on is really the policy review. So we have been extensively looking at the African Academy of Science, our policies, procedures, and we have been able to align, improve, and I believe improved it to a way that will be a better fit for where we are going in the future. I must start by acknowledging our Governing Council, and this has been an amazing journey. We have, and I'm not going to name all of them, but we are proud that we have actually a group of 4 women in our Governing Council. And we have several vice presidents for each region. And then we have our Secretary General and our Treasurer, and of course our Executive Director sitting on the Governing Council, the African Union representative, and then also one of our fellows and members, both in Kenya, Professor Mary and Professor Raphael. And that gives us a significant network throughout the continent. I want to really commend the Governing Council for really giving a tough ride, but powerful and wonderful and very dynamic. So at times it's lengthy meetings, but it's really, I believe, contributed significantly to the growth of the African Academy of Science. I unfortunately don't have the photographs of all the members, and I see some in the audience already, and they're not on this, but just to show you some of our program managers and senior management team that we work closely with, and I once again want to acknowledge them for their contributions. And just to touch on the African Academy of Sciences, our vision really to transform lives through science. And I'm talking about African lives through science, and science directed at African priorities and African focus areas for Africa, by Africa, in partnership with global role players, stakeholders, and other academies. So very clearly we want to leverage science, technology, and innovation. We are working towards sustainable development, and we are following our core values, and we have reviewed and revised these, and it is about integrity, diversity, excellence, etc., etc. So very importantly for us is our main strategic objectives, and just to touch on three, and these are very nicely, eloquently summarized in our strategic plan. But it is to create an enabling environment. And this is to really build the next generation of excellent scientists and fellows for the continent. And creating an enabling environment functions from establishing, supporting, and creating and co-creating the successful environment, infrastructure, laboratories, networks, linking with academic institutions and other research institutes and other initiatives. So we are really focused on building these partnerships and enhancing our brand and building back better. And we're also very involved and supporting the STI research and knowledge sharing platforms. And I'm going to share with you just, and this is one of our strategic drivers, and you can actually obtain more information in the strategic plan, but it is about people, partnerships, and excellence. And we have to grow this for our continent, and we have to do it now, and we have to play a leading global role in the global science community. We have very clear outcomes. We are on a journey to achieve them. And I will, in the next few sentences, just highlight some of these successes that we've already had. I want to just say some of our key successes, and this is one of our executive director's slides that she actually prepared for us the other day, just to reflect on the first period, the handover period. And it was really to get that ambitious strategic plan off the ground. It was really about restaffing, effectively improving our effective organizational structure, and look at resource mobilizations and partnerships. We also focused quite a lot on legal compliance, and very importantly to resolve some of the last disputes we had. And this is very important because we need to move towards partnerships. And then finally, finances, making sure we are sound for the future. And this is an ongoing task because we need to grow and continue to grow. We've also increased our membership base, and we are currently have another call out, and we are focusing on 10 major disciplines. We are also currently reviewing the criteria for fellowship, And just to give you a little bit of an overview, we have around 800 fellows and affiliates, 20 honorary fellows, and of course, let's not forget and let's honor our founding fellows. Just to touch on categories of these fellowships and the countries, and you can see there's an eloquent distribution of these fellows across the continent. And I want to say, I see there's 2 gaps that we've already filled, but our objective is by the end of the year to at least have fellows in each country in this continent. We want to make our presence felt, and we want to make sure that we cover all the key focus areas. And these, of course, include several clusters, and from bioscience, agriculture, mathematical science, etc., etc. So it's a process of continual improvement. We have a focus on specifically encouraging female scientists to become fellows, and as you can see, in certain disciplines, we are getting a significant improvement. And this is an ongoing process, and it's part of our objective to, by 25-26, get equality and to get full representation and to leave no country behind in this continent. And then, of course, effective distribution of male-female within all the clusters in our programs. I just want to mention very briefly, we've also shifted our focus to improve our communications and public relations. And I'm not going to go through all of these, but we've been more active. We are continually improving our website, and we are looking at rebranding, improving our, most importantly, communication. We've also strengthened the foundation and our basic organizational structure. We've overhauled our policies. We've looked at our staff, guiding them, helping them, and building their own career paths and working towards addressing the shortfalls within this community. And that's very important, to invest first and foremost on the staff who support the academy. And then, of course, we had inherited challenges when we took over. So that was the first 6 months, and the key focus was to address it, to deal with it, and to move on and shift our focus. Another very important point was that we realized that we have to foster innovation and collaboration. And there's a few interesting areas that we've specifically focused, and I'm going to show you just now a few really interesting examples. But science diplomacy, with a very good driver, and Dr. Kim is championing that for us within the AAS. And I'm going to just touch on what we've done, and I think it's very important. It's the time to make an impact. Science communication, science policy, and science diplomacy is now more than ever before important. Climate change, the reality is here. We have to change, we have to address it, we have to prioritize it, and we have to enable our scientists to step into the global platforms. And in terms of the climate change, and specifically a new initiative that we've also now launched, I'll touch on that a little bit later, the Frontiers Planetary Prize. We have now negotiated for an African Frontiers Planet Prize, and we are extremely proud of this. With our Frontiers Foundation and collaborators, I think this is one of our big success stories. We also have an initiative busy with the diaspora. We want to bring them home or connect them home or enable them to have access to better mobility grants so that they can help us grow that next generation scientists. We have to increase the Nobel laureates in this continent. There's only 25 out of more or less 500. That's too little. And we have to accelerate that. We have to invest in the young scientists and our affiliates and fellows so that they can become the next generation of Nobel laureates. Of course, a big focus on AI and cutting-edge sciences. There's a lot of programs, but I'm going to just mention 3 initiatives that's currently, I believe, game changers for us. The one is the United Nations collaboration, and here we've strengthened our ties with some of the UN agencies. We've reviewed the MOUs, we've added fields, strengthened it, and some of these examples include UNESCO, UNEP, WHO, etc., and NEPAD. And then, of course, we have the inter-academic cooperation. We've actually mapped out all the academies of science within the African continent and globally. We've strategically assessed who should we and must we be partner with, or improve our partnerships, or expand it. And we've actually reached out, and we are currently building these bridges and strengthening that. And then, of course, the Frontier Prize, and we will soon launch and start disseminating the information around that. But that's really about the Frontier Research Foundation, and to enable our African scientists to access that platform so that they can be recognized and they can play a significant role, a leading role in the global science community. Now, I just want to mention a few initiatives that we are partner. We were fortunate that we were included in these partnerships. One is the African Charter Initiative, and the AAS is one of our the program consortium members, and we're extremely happy about this initiative. It's important for us in terms of strategic advisory role, in terms of the critical review and input that we can do, and then, of course, in terms of exchange and joint learning. So very exciting. This is the continent where we must be now and where everyone must focus on. This is where things are happening now. Another very good example that I want to use is the diplomacy, Science Diplomacy Initiative. And this is a very interesting one. It's the Nile River Delta project. It will also soon be launched. And it is about science and diplomacy, diplomacy and science for diplomacy. And I think this is extremely important. And this will be setting a trend, and we hope and we plan to expand this to include other critical domains. Then the UN Futures Summit is around the corner. We have our own platform. We're going to play a significant role in the STI and stand up for African scientists and put ourselves in the lead and make a statement and take the continent with a united voice forward. For us to have a united voice, we must have partners. We cannot compete, we cannot undermine, and we must partner. And we can, by supporting each other, have a united African voice on these international science platforms and science networks. We also follow a few interesting initiatives that we're currently busy with, and I want to tell you this one specifically because I've been caught in this, and that's mobility. Global mobility, but specifically and foremost, African mobility. We cannot build an African science uniform mobile platform if we cannot move between countries, at least not with ease. So I must tell you, I was almost not here this morning because my e-visa, I had to get another one. So I was sitting at the airport, it was 12 o'clock at night, and I couldn't get it through, so I almost didn't arrive here this morning. And therefore, we must support government in the African Union and all the governments in the continent to help us with the free movement of people, and particularly scientists within the continent. And I want to highlight this, the protocol for treaty, and I think you're all familiar with it, but it has two important stages, and the one is the African passport for enhanced science mobility, which is something we would like to support and encourage. And if you look at the document, under Article 10, African passport, and then the second one is the free movement of students and researchers. And a very important challenge for us is the movement of students between universities and between countries. And it's very important because the one critical element we must address is mutual recognition of qualifications. They have done that in Europe, and it's with ease that these scientists and postgrad students can move between institutions and move between countries. We must do it, and we must accelerate this so that we can improve the science on the continent. Now, I just want to show you the statistic so that you can understand the dynamics. This is just the 8 recognized regions in the African continent. And this is very interesting because this study actually showed the kind of visas. So the blue blocks represent the visa-free recipients, and then the modes on the left, on your right, left, then that's the countries where it's with great difficulty. You either need a visa before you travel, or you can get one on arrival. But the more you move away from blue blocks, the more difficult it is for scientists to move within that region. And here I want to give you another example, just to compare the ECOWAS region, how easy it is to move between those countries compared to COMESA, for instance. So we are inevitably leaving scientists behind by not making it easier for them to move between countries or institutions. And I think it must be a priority. And I put out a call to all participants, stakeholders, and particularly the African Union and our governments to please accelerate the implementation of this, to make it easier for scientists to collaborate and to push for open science so that we can calibrate our methods, co-train our students, and share technology and knowledge. This is just another example, SADC, and you can see within the SADC region, some of the countries allows for easier mobility than, for instance, some of the others. So science knows no borders, but so does insect and pests. So the regional movement of plants and animals, pests and diseases, forests, trees, wildlife is a critical issue for the continent. And we know that we do have a lot of illegal trade, illegal movement of material, not only within the continent, but from the continent internationally. And we must have a united approach to address this. I want to just shift my focus a little bit to empowering African researchers. And I want to show you some of our examples of the African Academy programs. So the flagship, the African Research Initiative for Scientific Excellence, or AAS, and what appropriate word, AAS, Africa AAS. This is an EU Carnegie-funded grant for the period 2021 to 2027. We have already submitted phase 2, and we are waiting final approval. But this is really to build the next generation of fellows. If we can enable them and create a whole wave of young, brilliant scientists, enable them by giving them extra postdoctoral students, PhD bursaries, master's bursaries, you can build centers of excellence. And you can then build networks of excellence within the continent. So just to reflect on the ARISE program, we have 47 principal investigators in 38 countries. Our original objective was to select a principal investigator in each country. And we do hope that with the second round, we will be able to include the rest of the countries. We want to leave no one behind. And obviously the focus areas is between science and higher education, public health, innovation and technology, and the green transition. And with this program, we are developing a whole cohort of PhDs and master's students. So very importantly, linking with this program is our African Postdoctoral Training Initiative, Gates Foundation funding, and it will run till 2026. And with that, we are focusing on that scientific community, particularly in terms of global health. And then another APTI overview, we are not only working towards that public health agenda, but we do have several phases that we are building, and we will keep on expanding this initiative and program. And then, of course, just how do we improve, continual improvement, but not only within the African Academy of Science, but also within all our sister institutions, universities where we host a lot of these young fellows and young scientists, by enabling them to have access to a more effective financial administration system, or a supportive framework to enable them to more efficiently do their research. You know, it's so funny when we work with budgets and we work with international partners. And for us and within the African continent, it is often such a challenge just to get a chemical into your lab. It's not only more costly, but it's more timely. And often by the time you get it, it's expired, or it's no longer fit for purpose. And that's a huge challenge. And so it's not only about the infrastructure, the building and the equipment, but it's also about the maintenance, or the lack of access to maintenance of this equipment in this continent. We have to train more technical assistants in laboratories. We must invest in building capacity and training our youth and our next generation scientists. And we have to provide them this supportive, open platform so that we can grow the scientific capacity in this continent. And then, of course, we have three very critical elements. We are looking at inspiring the communities through thought leadership and advocacy. Here we are very active and currently involved in the African Union's TISA programs, policy influence, having a scientific voice, and approaching and working with other stakeholders so that we can strengthen that voice, and also to be involved in public engagement. Investing in the future, our strategic planning and vision. Once again, I've already worked through it. It is focused very much, and I see we've lost our signal. And while we're waiting for the signal to get back on, it is about capacity building, infrastructure development, as I've already said. Are we back on? Almost. And sustainable funding. And I think the sustainable funding, no, I'm out again. And I think the sustainable funding is crucial. But it's not only about sustainable funding within the AAS, but it's sustainable funding with even our partner groups. And I can mention a lot of the other academies that we have partnerships with. How do we jointly ensure that we continue and work together and have access to funding so that we can build this cohort? And I see we're almost back online. Thank you. So these are important. And then very excitingly, I'm now moving into where we're going. We have our General Assembly happening December 8th to the 11th. It will be a 3-day event. It's an open invitation to all our fellows. The theme will be empowering and advancing Africa's scientific enterprise. We expect 1,000 at least thinkers and stakeholders, and of course our global diaspora. And it will be in Nigeria. So with great excitement, we are looking forward to that. And then, of course, we have our Olusegun Prize for Scientific Discovery and Technological Innovation. And this is extremely important. This is a significant award to honor and reward our African scientists for the contributions they make to scientific discovery and innovation. And then I'm getting towards the end of my slides, but we have our fellowship inauguration, and that will be the cohort of 2022 and 2023 scientists. These will be the new fellows. It will also be recognizing African scientists, and also it will actually recognize and provide a platform for our collaborators so that we can strengthen that. And then, very importantly, to express our gratitude to all our stakeholders, supporters, and to the many people globally and in this continent who supported us, who stayed with us. And very importantly, I want to say thank you. And I want to say, walk with us, because we can walk far. We have been walking fast. We now want to walk far. Take our hand and walk with us. and we are appreciating our partners. We want to recognize our staff, and we want to ask them, stay with us, walk with us. And then our fellow engagement. This is about the fellows. It is first and foremost about supporting you, giving you access to opportunities to, and provide government support so that we can strengthen the continent. Looking forward towards the future, having a voice for science in Africa, reinforcing it, strengthening it, repositioning it, and expanding it. We have to be in the forefront. We have identified certain critical areas, and I want to mention one because it's one of my personal favorites, and that's the African bee project. I just love the concept of African bees and the importance of honey in our continent as a food source. And I think there's many other initiatives, the Brain Health and Wellbeing Initiative. There's the African One Health. There's an international conference, Global One Health Conference in Cape Town next month. And I think this is extremely important. Also, the Depository for Scientific Information and Data for Open Science. We have to provide that home for our data, and we have to manage it. Come to the African continent and share our data. Don't take it away from us and control it. Also, several other initiatives I can mention, the African Soil Initiative, indigenous crops, our biodiversity, etc., etc. Final slide is just to highlight a few of our partners, and this is by all means not all of them, but I want to mention a few brilliant examples, and the one is the Brain Research African Initiative. I think it is incredible. I am so proud we are finally talking about brain health and well-being, and the numbers of dementia and Alzheimer's people in this continent is going to increase in the next 5 and 10 years, and we have to provide solutions, we have to provide care, and we have to be prepared, and we have to support initiatives like this. And then a very important partner, and there's many, but this one of them that I think is very important is the International Science Council. We are very supportive. We work with them. They have this open science platforms where they are looking at reforming scientific publications. There's also the co-FAIR and co-data initiatives that we're currently talking to. And then our pride and joy, the Frontiers Planet Prize. So please keep your eyes open for the announcement for the next round of the Frontiers Planet Prize, and then specifically the journey towards that Planet Prize is through the African Frontiers Planet Prize that we will be hosting. We've signed the MOU, and with great excitement we are going to champion this for this continent. We have to make a difference, and we have to be mindful of those tipping points, because Africa will be severely affected. And then I want to mention a last thing, which is just a little personal favorite as well, and that's the Emeritus program. It's not about talking about the brain drain and trying to stop that. It is also not only about the brain gain, bringing back our diaspora, but it's also about our brain circulation. And there's so many retired, brilliant scientists and professors, and we want to keep them engaged. We first of all have looked at giving them above 70 years not having to pay for their fellowship, the fees, and that was just one thing. The next thing we're now busy with is looking at funding options to support them so that they can help us mentor the next generation of scientists. And then finally today, WHO declared Mpox a global health emergency. We have to be ready. We have to get our ducks in a row, and we have to stand in the front and lead by example. Thank you very much for your time. Support us, stay with us, walk with us. We are going to walk far. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you.
We'll wait for a picture.
Okay. Right. Another round of applause for President. Thank you so much. This is what, sorry. You see, if we were in another forum, she would have allowed herself to have been introduced. She's an astute scientist. You know, you can tell, but not only a scientist, but also a science advocate. And not only that, but also somebody who has people at heart. So thank you very much, Madam President. This, as you indicated, this is the first time, and we're really honored. But I think this is the first and will not be the last. Next year, we'll be celebrating our 40 years of AAS, and we would want to have that even bigger and better. And you would still be in the seat that time. So we'll start planning towards it. So by the end of the year, we'd have had real, timeline for the celebration up to the 40 years, where we'll honor those founders who are still alive and those founders posthumously who are gone. Thank you very much. Mine is to invite questions. Any questions? Any questions? I must acknowledge the journalists who are here, the different media houses that are here. This morning she had an interview with Nation to actually, tell her story as a woman leading the African Academy of Sciences, which has been a male-dominated organization for nearly 40 years. They wanted to find out her vision, some of the challenges, and where she wants to go, during her presidency. So thank you very much. Any questions from anybody? I also realize we have people online who will be asking questions. Is anybody taking down any of the questions from those from online? Yes, yeah.
Yes, there's one question from Ahmed. Did you mention application for fellowship is still open? So he'd like to know about the application for fellowship.
Any more questions? We'll take somebody at the back. Who's handling the mic?
Sorry, just another question on the chat is from Maria asking, my question is on the access to scientific resources and journals, as it is many African countries are not able to access prime publications, and this restricts their access.
We have somebody physically here wants to ask a question, and then we'll respond to Maria. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Dan Okoth. I'm from SciDev and Nature. I'm a journalist, basically. I just wanted Madam President to expound more on this African passport for enhanced scientist mobility. I would probably love to have a look at the research, at the study you alluded to during your presentation, and maybe know the impact. What is the impact of this? Does it mean that scientists cannot move between countries in Africa? And what are the consequences of this? How does it impact development? How does it impact knowledge sharing? And what are the causes for this lack of mobility between scientists and institutions? What can be done about it? And in your overall roadmap, how are you tackling such issues? Because I also talked to the president of the African Charter, and what was coming out is that much as scientific data is coming out of Africa, from Africa to the global south. There is not much sharing of data between scientists in Africa. And this data finds its way to the global north, and scientists there and other institutions are capitalizing this data for their benefit, either to monetize it or to use it for research for their own benefit. What is AAS doing to address these issues altogether? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the questions. I'm just going to answer, and actually, Kim, you can respond in terms of the invitation to fellows. We have a call that's closing now, I think in end of this month. Yeah. And then the next call we're going to open immediately after that, because we missed one cycle, so we're trying to catch up. So that's what's happening in terms of the call. We also have been discussing the criteria, and I think, Kim, you can also expand on that. And a good example is the controversy around the H index. Because is that a fair measure of scientists in different disciplines? And I happen to have had a discussion with the dean of our law faculty, and our University of Pretoria law faculty is also the top law faculty in the continent. And while our minimum criteria is a 20 H index, Web of Science, she said in general lawyers will have around 5. Not really a 20, you know, so I think we need to reassess, because if you're a lawyer, it's quite often if you're cited in a court case, or you publish books rather than publications like we do, so we maybe need to develop new criteria in partnership with other stakeholders and role players. So this is a very important process we're currently doing. We want to retain excellence, and we want to expand our fellowship base. And we will do it, and we will do it to the best of our ability. And that's a very important point for us. We also, I want to just comment on the African Academy of Science campus, because we're sitting here now, and I wonder how many of our fellows have been on this campus. It is beautiful. And there's an open invitation to any of our fellows to come and visit us, use the facility, and be part of the activities within the campus, and participate and join. We have several subcommittees that we are currently busy with, and a lot of initiatives. So we are really looking at strengthening the fellow base and the fellows network. Then I want to just comment on access journals, open journals. We are looking at introducing a new journal for the African continent. We have already had negotiations with several of the publishing houses, and we are currently finalizing a proposal. We also work and have discussed this with the ISC, with their open access, and we've engaged with a lot of the big publishing houses in terms of ensuring that we have a better representation of African scientists on the editorial boards as reviewers, and that there's a support system for scientists to enable them in the African continent to publish, to help them to publish and meet the standards of that specific journal. And yes, funding is the issue, and access to the information is the issue. And that's where we have prioritized the open access priority area for one of our initiatives. I want to touch on the visa. I think anyone moving around Africa will realize it's extremely difficult, it's timely, it's costly. So in certain cases, if you go to a certain country, you need to get a visa. And that's difficult. It will easily take a day of traveling, you have to stand in queues, it's expensive. Now, if you're a young scientist, how can you afford it? And then it's also not easy to travel in the continent. You usually have to go through 1 or 2 key points, so there's no direct flights to all the parts in the continent. So it's a challenge to move around freely. So therefore, we think if we have a better visa system that supports us, that you have mobility, enhancing mobility, it will accelerate the science output of this continent. But it's not only mobility within the continent, it's also mobility internationally. So I've just had my US visa renewed. It's 10 years. And that makes a big difference. So it's easier for me to go to the US than it is to go to Europe, because I get shorter periods of visa. Periods is what, 3 months, if you like, is 6 months. And if you have a research project with a European partner, you need to at least visit the country or your partners at least a few times per year. So it becomes costly. It's extremely costly to purchase that. It takes a lot of your time, and it becomes restrictive. So if you have a 5-year project, the EU, African Union funded project, then I can't see why you can't have linked to that a visa that gives you that mobility for that duration of your funded project. So that's why it's very important for us. And then the new roadmap, the African chapter, and the issues and the challenges we would like to address. And that's currently a document we've prepared. We're currently giving input, and we're busy finalizing that. And once again, I would like to ask Kim to also respond, particularly to this too, to just give you a little bit more information.
All right. Thank you, Madam President, for giving me a chance to clarify this. The first question was about the fellowship and the criteria and call for nominations. So, Madam President indicated earlier that we had a backlog that was kept a year, and we're trying to close that up. Currently, there's a call for 2023 nominations that's ongoing. It closes in 3 days, August 18th. And we already have a substantive number of applications in the pipeline being processed. When this call ends in 3 days, on the 18th of August, we will process them rapidly and then launch another call for 2024 to close up that backlog completely. That will be made at the end of this August for a 1-month period. So for those within the continent or globally who missed these next 3 days of nominations, they can wait and submit their nominations end of August through September. At that point, we would have closed the backlog. That will be the 2024 call. Everything will be closed up. We will look forward to inaugurating both classes of new fellows during the General Assembly meeting in Abuja in December. Effective 2025 then, we will get back to our regular annual cycle with enough lead time for all nominations. That's for with the nominations. The criteria are clear there on our website. There's a whole outline there of nominations criteria. The membership and nominations committee is reviewing the overall criteria. The academy, as our president indicated in her slide, has 10 clusters. They are not equal in terms of criteria, and each of the cluster has their own membership advisory committee of experts in that field who finally make a decision on who is nominated or not.
So, thank you very much. You want to stand on the podium, or you're okay? All right. Thank you very much. There are quite a number of questions, but I think you've answered some, and I think you can read some here. But one question is, Madam President, do you envisage having a journal for AAS?
Yes.
Maybe you can take it together with the other question. How is AAS collaboration with China and India going? How do we collaborate with these two countries? There are quite a number, but I think these are the linked ones.
Thank you very much. Yes, we are busy. We actually, Professor Kenneth, one of our governing council members, is driving this initiative. We've already had several discussions, and we are busy with a proposal. So we want to launch that. We're really targeting December to launch as much as we can so that we can really show the impact that we're making. And that will also give us a lot of impetus to go into 2025 and implement our strategic plan further. Then China, India, yes, we're busy with MOUs, reviewing it, revising it, getting input. And in terms of China, I can maybe also just expand a little bit. We have the African-China Science Partnership Initiative with UNESCO that we're currently working on. So I think this is a very exciting frontier for us, and we will most probably, once again in December, make an announcement. So we do have MOUs and partnerships with different academies. I know Brazil was another Academy of Science that has approached us. And then we've also revisited some of the older academies that we've traditionally had partnerships with. One, for instance, is Austrian Academy of Science. And in their case, we specifically spoke about the Emeritus Initiative to create mobility initiatives for scientists in the African continent and Austria to exchange, particularly once they've retired, because they have more time and they have a lot of knowledge, but they also need some support, financial support. So we think that's really a great initiative. That's just to give you a few examples. There is more. And I think that's the key questions now.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. And also just to complement, also the recognition of the African Academy of Sciences by the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, who are becoming, our biggest, our big collaborators as well. And I guess some of them are online listening. So thank you very much, Madam President. We'll take one question from the audience here, and then we'll continue with those online. Yeah.
Thank you very much, AAS President, for the very beautiful presentation. My name is George Tinega. I'm a scientist at the CALRO, Kenya Agricultural and Livestock Research Organization. About partnership, because I'm asking this because all innovations and research findings are for the benefit of those people out there in the community, so that we reap more benefits from scientific research and the products of science. I am so much happy that the partnership, therefore, should engage from, for example, AAS to those institutions that are able to reach people in different communities and at that background where they can benefit more. Is there any focus from AAS that there is partnership with, for example, institutions like Cambridge, institutions like CARRO, which therefore have reach to the communities who benefit more?
Okay, so we speaking about the communities and other examples of partnership. We're busy with a strategic map. Because you cannot be partners and collaborate with everyone. You can create networks and you can link networks. So, and also you don't want to compete with each other, but you want to support each other and strengthen each other. So that to us is very important. And that was part of our Governing Council strategic meetings and discussions. So it's an ongoing process. We're continuously evaluating it. We've just gone through the process of evaluating all our MOUs. And that was a very good exercise to do, because sometimes you just have an MOU or a collaboration, but there's no real benefit. And it has to be a benefit for the African continent and for African scientists. And with that is the agenda setting and the co-development of these initiatives. And I want to use some of the African Union, European Union initiatives. So some of these grand challenges and big projects that run 5 years, what we now see is that often the African country must be or can be the lead partner. And often they now lead work packages. And that's a significant shift. Because not only are we co-designing and setting the agenda, but we're actively participating, and we are no longer the object or subject, but we are not only creating our own data, but we co-publishing it, co-sharing it, and the benefit comes back to us. And that's a very important strategic point, to be mutually recognized and respected and trusted. So it's a very important shift. So to respond, yes, there's like cargo was one example. There's NEPAD. We're currently busy with NEPAD. We've always had a MOU. So and there's ITA. I can think of many. And this will be an ongoing process. We will look at also who's reaching out to us. The partnerships we currently have is where we were actively approached, supported, and it was a strategic decision from both sides that it will be mutual beneficial to work together, to walk together so we can go further.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam President, for really eloquently indicating how we are repositioning and redefining our next journey in the next 5 years and even beyond. I have another question here is, how can AAS convince the African governments to invest at least 1% of their GDP in R&D expenditure? This has been an ongoing question, but they're wondering how AAS, what strategies do you have to convince African governments, to do that? And that also links very well with what makes AAS different from other structures. So maybe you can take these two first, and there are a few more.
Thanks very much.
From the audience who wants to ask the media, and then after that you can ask yours. Thank you. Before I go on to the online.
Thank you very much for these two. Yes, they're very important. I recently commented at a government academic industry platform where we're actually talking about food security policy implementation plans, etc., etc. And we've also had a big meeting around food safety within the African continent. And there's really wonderful programs and projects currently being rolled out. But how do we get governments to invest more? And I fully agree with you. The target was 1%. They're way below that. And there needs to be a significant mind shift and a commitment and an implementation of that commitment. And the only way is really to work together. So we, for instance, work close with the regional academies. We are targeting the different regional academies, and the regional vice presidents are supposed to reach out to those. I know in Nigeria, Prof. Friday, he's already very actively involved and engaging with them. I'm very involved with the Southern African Academy of Science, ASAF, and their funding structures are different to ours. For instance, in ASAF's case, they get funding from the Department of Science and Innovation. In our case, we work on an endowment fund. So yes, there is differences between the academies. Also, a fellow has to be an academy in his own region, and then he becomes a fellow of the African Academy of Sciences. So we are a continental academy. We represent the whole continent. We're actively supporting, engaging with, and enhancing the fellow and affiliates' progress into that scientific standing and to support them for excellence. So that's one of our main focus areas, is to be actively involved in creating a more enabling environment for the continent's fellows and top scientists, and to create a pathway for the young and emerging and new scientists entering this space, and to create that and support that. We cannot do it alone, but if we link, at least talk to or co-develop initiatives such as mobility grants with other partners such as ISC or the universities networks, etc., AROA, we will not achieve our goals, not ours and not any of the other institutes or stakeholders. We have to walk together, and we have to find common ground, and we need to make sure we are complementing and supporting each other, and that to me is a priority. And I hope I've answered both questions.
Thank you. Yes, there's a question on the floor.
From the media again, Madam President, what is your policy on enhancing and developing microbiomes research in Africa? Currently, much of the studies, almost nearly all of these microbiome studies are led by researchers from outside Africa, yet Africa, as the most diverse microbiome, microbiomes landscape in the world, at least 10% more than any other region in the world. Yet Africans do not have a lead in any microbiome research currently. I just wanted to know what strategy you have in trying to enhance microbiome research in Africa, and particularly to enable African scientists to lead in microbiome research, because microbiome is now being applied so much in terms of medical research. Most health research rely on microbiome data to come up with their findings, and Africa is in the lead in terms of microbiome data. Yet Africans do not play a major role. Africans researchers are not given a seat on the table in microbiome research in the world. I just wanted to know if you are aware of this situation and what you are doing about it. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. That's a perfect question, because this is one of my areas that I'm involved in, agri-food microbiomes. So there's a lot happening in the African microbiome space, and I can proudly say there's an African microbiome, a very strong group that's networking into the whole continent. There's Stellenbosch University, Cape Town University, Pretoria University, whole series of partners reaching out into the continent. There's a soil microbiome initiative, for instance. I know Prof. Don Cohen is one of those champions, and they are collaborating globally and focusing locally. And that's very important, because it's not only about building that data, building that information, but it's also applying it. So how can we use the knowledge around microbiomes? So in our own program, for instance, we are looking at microbiome shifts during plant growth, and we are specifically looking at the impact, the pathobiome, the impact of plant pathogens, for instance, when they enter the space, and how they affect the core microbiomes, and how these shifts, because of chemical treatments or biological control treatments, and then as a product gets processed or consumed, then what happens to those microbiomes? What's the drivers of change? How can we use that knowledge to apply to make a difference, to improve our disease control strategies? So that's just some examples. So there's a really strong scientist working on it and leading within networks, closely collaborating with international partners. And a lot of these partnerships, what we're doing, at least in the agri-food system, is we are putting joint proposals on the table. There's a brilliant proposal by Professor Kiefer van Stellenbosch University, and his group is working on the gut microbiome, and the different partners in our groups are all working at looking, for instance, at indigenous crops or how fresh produce microbiomes then impact on your gut microbiome. So there's really brilliant initiatives, and a lot of these initiatives include training, guiding young students in terms of data interpretation, analysis, etc., etc. So it's a space to watch, and I think we are rightfully taking our place at the table.
Thank you very much. The other question, they're both linked, and that is how can AAS, what can AAS do to support universities in Africa to access research publications globally? I think you mentioned about somebody is interested in knowing more. And linked to that is, what is AAS strategy for encouraging French-speaking African universities to become members of your academy? Is it a language barrier or what?
Thank you for that. That's two good questions. I have, in a way, already answered the one question in terms of open science. So the Academy is very involved in supporting IAC and other open science platforms and initiatives. There's actually quite a few. I'm thinking of, for instance, the bioimaging, African Bioimaging Initiative, the synchrotron initiative in the continent, and that's really enabling those scientists to work together and publish together. Once you publish together, you also get access to that, libraries, journals. So we want to fast track and accelerate that, and that's very important. So that's an ongoing initiative, and it is a priority area for us. And I want to just touch on the language barrier. We do have the Francophone countries, and what's very interesting in that context, I think we have a sound mobility problem. We have had a lot of discussions with the French government, with the European Union, with the regions in the continent where we have French-speaking scientists and universities. We are engaging with them, but it's not only the French. We also have identified that we should improve the initiatives and the linkages with Portuguese-speaking countries, and we were specifically focusing on Mozambique and Angola. And we actually now have an initiative on the table. I think we've just signed the MOU. And I think that's very exciting. It's part of that Brazilian link, and also talking to Portugal. So I think it's only through working together that we can empower the scientists and link them within the continent so that language is not a barrier.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think one of the issues which, one of our core values is diversity. We recognize that, we have to be one Africa, in Africa, working for the global Africa. So, just to add to what Madam President has said, Portugal has come to fund additional AAS fellows in Lusophone countries, in Portuguese-speaking countries. So this is where they have come in. And also for information, the French government is bringing a whole delegation of researchers, the NRS here to the academy to see how we can also help with the French-speaking countries. So they've had what, the new direction, the repositioning as the new governing council is, articulating to say that Africa has to be united and we should not leave anybody behind, particularly the Francophones and the Lusophones. Thank you. So I hope my Francophone country colleague who asked that question, and we would like to work with you, our colleague from Francophone country. We need more Francophone countries. And for your information, now we're encouraging, even in the academy, in the management, a francophone country, a francophone speaking, manager, in the name of, Dr. Income. It's a bilingual, but from Cameroon, which is French. So would really want to have somebody from the other Lusophone countries. So thank you. Any more questions? Otherwise, I have one for Madam President, another one. And thank you very much, all of you, those here and those online, for your interest and also the questions, that you're asking. Madam President, somebody want to find out, in what way does AAS wish to link scientists with industry or the various disciplines? How are you working towards that? Apparently, maybe this wasn't quite explicit. The person wants to find out more. Thank you.
Yes, that's, I think, a neglected area. I think the focus was very much on building the science capacity and reaching out to the academic institutions. But there's a lot of other research institutions that is also, for us, very important and a priority. I'm just thinking of some of the very big French research institutions, INRA, CERAD. We're also busy talking to them and looking at how we can get them more involved and collaborate and unlock financial support for our scientists. But and then we're reaching out to government. We're talking to our governments. In the Academy of Science in Kenya, we have close links with the government. We obviously talk with them, engage with them, and we want to expand that and build that trust and supportive framework. And we obviously have, each region will have to reach out to their governments and build that and strengthen that. And we hope the science policy and science dialogues will really foster that. But the one area we haven't considered and really thought of to enable and strengthen is the link between science within academia and industry. And at the moment, a lot of those initiatives are funded through big African Union, European Union partnerships, where one of the partners will be an industry partner, for instance. But it is an area we haven't really focused on yet. And it's a very good, it really gives me a few ideas and something we could look at in future. How do we strengthen that industry, government, academia networks and platforms to accelerate research and innovation? I also just want to mention a very important point, and thank you, Kim, for just reminding me. Of the fellows, all the French-speaking countries actually have fellows, except for 2. So we have a very strong fellowship base in the French-speaking countries. We're now working and focusing on Mozambique and Angola, and I think we're going to just keep on expanding until we reach out to every single country in this continent.
Okay, thank you very much. Any last questions? I think we planned for 1 hour. We're supposed to close at 3:30. Any more questions? No, I think I see. Is there any question coming up? All right, okay. So, Madam President. Okay. Hello, you're welcome. Yes, I would like to acknowledge all those who are, connected. As at yesterday, we had over 500 who had registered. And I'm being told that 350 something are currently connected. They're listening in. So thank you very much, all collaborators, all our supporters, all our fellows, and all our well-wishers, for connecting. And especially also our young and upcoming scientists, the early and mid-career scientists who are also connected. Unless there's if we have any other questions for Madam President, the media, any question from you? Are you okay? Yes. Sorry. Right. Some people want to, have a tete-a-tete, not publicly. So I hear a few want to ask you questions when you finish, so please don't go yet. Extinguish, is that okay? Can we close the, or you want to ask a question? Okay, Patterson, I think you have something to say. Yeah, okay. Give it to Patterson. All right, okay. All right. Distinguished fellows, our partners, our staff, hardworking staff, and would like to say a big, big thank you to Madam President. This is unprecedented, town hall, and this is only the beginning. So can we, in appreciation, say thank you to her. I think somebody was trying to do the Kenyan way of saying thank you. But since we didn't let others practice, maybe we'll just say, thank you. On your behalf, all distinguished listeners who are connected, our fellows, governing council members who are connected, the AU connected, and most of our collaborators, our funders, the journalists who are here, we hope you take our message out of AAS to all the others by actually writing, and advocating for AAS. AAS is the voice for science in Africa, and we're pursuing that as such. There's so much opportunity for scientists on this continent, but we need more scientists. From the count, and most of the data that we've been having, we don't even have 30% of young people doing science. And there's a leaky leak. There are many who start from primary, but getting to the end, there are very few. And even fewer for women scientists. I hope, okay. All right. I think Madam President wants to say something. I have kicked, some. All right. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I would also like to thank our Executive Director for really championing a lot of initiatives and supporting the Governing Council a lot, and for her team. They're really extremely hardworking. It's a small team. It's a powerful team. We want to support them, and we want to express our appreciation for what they do. I want to just mention two things. I did mention that we have a global One Health conference in Cape Town in September. But in fact, next week we have a microbiome conference also in Cape Town. And I will be speaking on Monday, but I think that's also a significant event. So what I'm saying is that African countries should also get involved with these big global conferences, host them. I know Rwanda has been doing it extremely successful. We've been there, I think, with 2 already. It was excellently organized, very well hosted. It was really amazing, and that's what we should be doing. We should be leading by hosting these conferences, providing a platform, arranging workshops, and taking initiatives. So with that, I just want to say our time has come. Stand up, step in, and let's work together. Africa will arise. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much with those words. So again, just to follow on and say thank you very much for being here. We've only started the journey, and we'll encourage all of you to join in the journey. You are a great team to work with. I know as Oliver Twist, we ask for more. And I particularly want to thank Madam President for being open to new ideas, for being open to initiative, and for being open to support the Academy, and particularly for her vision of moving the Academy from where it is to a higher height. With these few words, I would like to say thank you very much for coming, and thank you all for your presence. So thank you. And, thank you. We have, and those of you who want to have tete-a-tete with Madam President, she's here with us. But remember, she has a flight to catch tonight, so she has to, go in good time. I think we have something out there. Shaili tells me she's have a little, tea for us to share tea together and continue the conversation. So thank you very much and have a great evening. Thank you.
Recording stopped.